Okay, we've got everything going on medium-low. I want to prepare a couple of scallops that we're going to do. Now the scallops are going to cook very quickly, so we'll get them ready to go and we'll put them on the grill the last minute. So I've got some beautiful rosemary branches that I've picked. We're going to pick some fresh herbs. I have some nice rosemary growing, and your rosemary can actually grow all year round. Some people take it inside, depending on the winter. Actually, if you get a really bitter winter, rosemary's fine outside. But if you get a mild winter, that's when you tend to lose it. So I'm going to get some rosemary, and we'll get some other herbs as well. And I'm going to just pull off some of the bigger bottom pieces. Of course, we'll save those to use with some potatoes or some lamb or in some salad later on. And we're going to take these scallops and we're going to use these branches actually as skewers. So we'll put 2 of them on each here. This is going to impart just such a wonderful flavor. I do this with shrimp. I do this with lots of different types of fish. Excuse me. I know you're going to say, here we go again, but same thing. Get an idea on a pattern here. We're kind of using the same kind of items on each. We're just moistening them with a little bit of wonderful olive oil, a little bit of cracked pepper. I'm not even going to put any salt on these since they live in salt water. We'll see how they are at the end. It's easier to add the salt at the end for something you're unsure of than to try and figure out a way to lighten it up or get rid of it at the end. Okay. The other thing I'm going to put on these scallops, which I think will be nice, another little bit of seasoning. This is just a simple Old Bay crab boil seasoning, which I use all the time for shrimp and scallops and all kinds of fish. I'm going to put a fair amount on. Be careful because it is a little bit spicy. And we're just going to lay these right back in here. And we'll keep those off to the side so that when we're ready to throw them on the grill in the last minute, they'll be at our fingertips. Okay, another quick little cleanup. And actually, since I had some meat and some scallops, I'm going to just flip this board over. And we'll start to get ready with our topping that we're going to make for our eggplant. But I want to check again. Excuse me. Eggplant's looking wonderful. I'm just flipping it around a little bit. You know, we do things on a 45-degree angle. So that we can make the presentation side just wonderful. Folks like to see those crosshatch marks on everything that comes off the grill. It's like a little indication or a sign to say, hey, I've been grilled. So it's very important when you're doing stuff for presentation to make a presentation side. You do one angle about 45 degrees compared to the grill bars, and then you flip it 45 degrees over. Then once you flip it over, you can move it around any way you want because you're preserving that presentation side. Now, if you think the presentation side isn't coming out to your liking, once you flip it completely over, you can try and make another presentation side, cook that, and then you can start to flip it back over. And then it continues to cook totally on one side, and you leave the presentation side up. Okay, for that eggplant, I want to make a nice little topping, some little tomatoes that we picked earlier in our garden. Well, I'll tell you, it's sad when the tomato plants are ending. That's how I know the summer is ending. So I'm going to pick these last couple of nice red. Look, the dog's even stealing my tomatoes. You stealing my tomatoes? You better get away from them. You'll wind up in the soup pot. We get the last couple of tomatoes, we'll do something wonderful with these, with our eggplant that we just picked. Again, remember I was talking about the serrated knife and the fact that you use it for things that are harder on the outside. It's just perfect for tomatoes. Just glides right through them. I'm going to cut these little cherry tomatoes in eighths. We're going to make a little caprese salad to go on top, which is simply some tomatoes and some little fresh mozzarella balls. This will be wonderful on top of that eggplant. This alone and a piece of bread will be enough to sustain the average person for a wonderful summer, whether it be early or late lunch. This is just such an absolutely simple meal, and I tend to do different cuts of steak, really depending on what I can get on sale. You know, steak sometimes can be extremely expensive and prohibitive to some budgets. So you wait to see if there's a strip steak or a T-bone steak or a porterhouse steak. Now, I said T-bone and porterhouse, and most of us think about the T-bone, and what we think is a T-bone is actually a porterhouse. The T-bone steak has little to no filet mignon on it. When you get that big piece of filet mignon and that big piece of strip steak on there, that's really the porterhouse. But a lot of restaurants I see call that a T-bone, because that's just what people are used to hearing that term used as. But be careful if you're buying it, because you order a T-bone steak and you're not paying attention, and you're going to get the small end of the porterhouse. So when you want a nice big steak with the double side and the filet mignon and the sirloin, you have to make sure that you get a large porterhouse steak. Okay, so we've got some wonderful little cherry tomato, and they're just sweet and wonderful at this time of year. Oh, bell's ringing. I think somebody left me a tip or the wind's blowing. Used to go to a place in Hoboken for steak sandwiches, and just the greatest little steak sandwiches. They actually take ribeye, whole ribeye, and they slice it up about 3/8 of an inch thick. They throw it on a steel, kind of what we would think of as an old hibachi style grill, big thick steel bars, and they grill them up and serve them with sauteed onions, no peppers, sauteed onions and cheese and hot peppers, whatever you want. And it's a great little place called Piccolo's, and it's really like a character kind of hangout. And what's funny is that anytime you leave a tip, and I didn't know this was happening for a long time. I actually just thought somebody was, you know, screaming out and just blurting out things. You leave a tip, and whoever spots the tip and picks it up, they yell out, "Subway!" And then all of a sudden you hear somebody in the background say, "Thank you very much." And for years I was going there, and I had no idea what this represented until finally I actually, through a friend of mine, met the owner and said, "What's up with them yelling Subway?" And he said, "Oh, that's just so we know somebody left a tip, so we can all acknowledge and, you know, wave and say thank you." So I thought that was just the funniest thing. So when the bell rings, you'll hear me yelling Subway, and Adam in the background will yell out, "Thank you very much." Okay, let's take a look at our grill again.